Hi guys, my name is Karanja. I'm one of the co-founders here at Zindua School, and I currently lead the business development and software development teams. I also double up as the co-founder of Chapter Global, which is a company that works closely with Zindua School to help them offer deferred tuition payment options such as flexible payments and income share payments. So how I got to be involved with Zindua is actually pretty interesting. Cyril and I go way back. We met back in high school, and this was back in 2016. Then we sort of lost touch for a while because everyone went to different universities. Then we later on met in 2020 during the pandemic. I think Cyril has already mentioned his time in Italy and coming back. So he just come back from Italy at that particular time. And we met in a very social gathering. Actually, if I can just go into detail, we're actually playing a game of FIFA on his PlayStation. And so during that time is when he got to tell me about his plan to start a coding school. He'd already set a few things rolling, but he needed someone who had two specific skills. One was good in software development and had some know-how in business development. And that ideally just described who I was at that particular time. So we teamed up from that point, had the first class. And from then on, it's been a very interesting journey of highs and lows to the point we are today. So on a light note, I come from a family of teachers. My granddad and my dad both being teachers, so I always knew at some point I'll get into the profession. That's on a light note. But seriously, I think my motivation to start Zindua School was just the mission. And the mission while starting was to just offer an avenue for bright students who could probably not afford fees to come and get quality education and technology. I too have a personal journey where I missed out on a very good educational opportunity because of a lack of fees. And so I understood how bad it felt having qualified for a program, but not being disqualified just on the basis of you affording it or not. And so we wanted a situation or to build a school where we'd give refuge to the Jessies and Cyrils who were bright, but probably just couldn't afford their quality programs they qualify for. And so my journey as a co-founder here at Zindua School has been really interesting. I think it epitomizes any entrepreneur's journey, filled with proper highs and lows. 2021 to be specific, because our first class was in 2020, we took a lot of lessons from that. Then in 2021, we started on a high because we got our first grant thanks to Resolution Project, and we thought the year had been set for success. But fast forward a couple of months later, we ran into a couple of issues, both structural and financial, to a point where we almost closed down the school. And I even went back to employment because it was quite certain that Zindua was no more. But thanks to the core technical mentors we had at the time and a few of the students who decided to stick with us, and they said that they would still proceed with the program despite all the issues we had. And I think we were able to see through 2021, and in 2022 specifically towards the end is when now we broke even and we started seeing students interested in our programs, and it really set pace for 2023, which has been our most successful year yet. So I think those are some of my highlights. A lot of firsts. Our first grant, thanks to Resolution. Breaking even, I think, is a very, very important milestone of any entrepreneur's journey. And also now our first hackathon, our first open day last year, which was very, very successful. And more importantly, even our team. Yeah, we started this year with a team of 3. We now have a team of 10 fantastic individuals who are sold to the dream and who are doing their best to take this into a name forward. I can think of two times, one that builds on the other. The first one is that, as I had mentioned earlier, in 2021, things got very thick to a point where we almost closed down the school. And at that particular point, I went back to employment. But despite the security of a permanent job with a permanent pay to at the end of the month, I still felt like my purpose was in entrepreneurship. And so at the end of that year in 2021, I still quit that job to go back to building Zindua School, which at the time had not become any better from how it was a couple of months before. But I just felt that was my purpose, and it probably needed me full time there so that it could grow and be what it is today and what it will be in a few years. And the other time was when we broke even. As I mentioned, it's a very monumental part of any entrepreneur's journey. And so when we broke even in September of 2022, which is a month I'll never forget, I think that was when we actually, I remember our ride home with Cyril just looking at each other and being like, man, we made it. Because we were really, for 2.5 years, we were working towards that point. And I'm really glad to say that from then on, we've only been, we've had profits or building on our profits from then on to today. So I think those 2 times ideally detail why I'm doing this full time, or at least what informed me to be doing this full time. Over the last 2.5 years, we've definitely dealt with a lot of students. Cyril talked about the success of some of those students who came in earlier. I think I'll try detail the stories of some of them who've gone through our program this year. One of them is Mugambi Murithi. I'm sure he's in the audience today. He was one of our data science students, and he came in just having finished his undergraduate degree at Strathmore and looking to upskill in tech so he could get a job. And he was one of the most committed students I've ever seen. And through his time here, even before getting to the capstone module or to his graduation, which is today, he'd already built a side project that enabled him get employment. And today, even as he graduates, I'm sure he's about 4 or 5 months in employment. The second story is about Imelda Uvira, who's also graduating today, and is one of our software development students. And she came in also having graduated from university. She'd done something entirely different in math and chemistry, and was also looking to upskill to technology. And again, the focus and dedication we saw in her, I think, was unmatched. And I'm actually proud to say that thanks to one of our employer partners, Alpha Systems, she'll be starting her role actually next month, I think, as a software developer intern. So I think these 2 stories of 2 individuals who are relentless in their journey and actually were able to even get employed before their graduation dates, ideally just speak to the value we offer at Zindua School. And I think every other student watching this should borrow from this and be inspired by the stories of Mugambi and Imelda. Another key success story I'd like to highlight is one of our full-time students called Happy. This year we started our first full-time class, and we've seen a lot of success from it. Our target audience is basically young high school students who are just fresh from high school. And in this particular case, we had one called Happy who came in very fresh, not knowing anything in technology. In fact, her interests were in medicine, but she was just curious enough to enroll to Zindua School so she could learn what software development was really all about. And through her journey here, she was able to be one of our best students yet, especially in that particular class. She graduates today with a certificate in excellence in her software development. And she was able to build an e-health platform that allows people to seek consultation online from their doctors and also access other medical facilities from that same platform. Today, as we speak, she's in the UK doing her degree in medicine. And before she flew out, she actually took her time to call us, and she mentioned she just told us how she's looking to infuse or combine her technology and medicine worlds together. So I think this is a proper case of some of the success stories we have here at Zindua School and what impact lies within the walls of Zindua School. So the vision for Zindua is very simple: to just be the biggest coding school in Africa. I think we're doing a lot of things differently. Having come from tech backgrounds with computer science degrees, we know what's needed in the market. A lot of us have also worked in industry, and we've also attended a lot of these big boot camps and coding schools and seen what they're doing wrong and what they're doing right. And we've tried now just infuse everything into one. And that's what Zindua School is. And so we want it to be the biggest coding school in Africa, not just by name, but by practice. The kind of graduates we churn out, the kind of program we offer, and everything that has Zindua's name to it. Zindua School is here to serve you. Zindua School is designed to prop you and prep you to be the best data scientist or software developer or techie in general in the world. And so if you're looking to join Zindua School, I'd highly recommend you to go ahead and join. But I'll still request that you make sure that you can put in your own shift, come prepared to also be challenged, put in enough time, and all will be well. But Zindua School is the best place to be. I couldn't emphasize that even more. And if you're looking to join, please do.
Hello, my name is Cyril Michino. I am a co-founder at Zindua School and I am a data scientist. I've had a chance of working as a technical mentor teaching data science at Zindua before transitioning to operations. What's more interesting about my Zindua journey is it ended up with me also founding with my colleague Jesse a Learn Now Pay Later servicing company called Chapter that allows students who cannot afford education to pay what they can and pay the rest once they're earning. Interesting question, if that's going to be the video. So I got into the EdTech space by accident. While at African Leadership Academy, I had a chance of being exposed to blockchain technology early on. That was around 2017, and I know there was a big boom on cryptocurrencies then. But what was of huge value is I had a mentor called Adler who was able to share more about what blockchain does in general. And from that sort of chat, we were able to start something called the African Blockchain Initiative, where we used to learn by ourselves more about blockchains, what's the development landscape about it, beyond the sort of crypto markets, what can this technology do for the world? And this initiative ended up building content to educate other Africans on what blockchain could do, and we ended up servicing up to 50 universities across Africa with our content, even though it was just a Slack group. Now, of course, this was not sustainable. There was no money we were making off of it. But that's what made me really enjoy content development, enjoy running workshops that were educating people on a technical field. And that's what really sparked my interest into the EdTech field in general and the education field in general. So African Blockchain Initiative was just the start for me. I ended up moving to building content, courses on Udemy, sometimes even on YouTube. I also had a chance to even teach an advanced blockchain class at University of Pennsylvania, which was focused on crypto economics at that particular time. And that just ended up honing that sort of interest I had in being an educator myself, but also being a significant tech on the other front. So Zindua founding was a really sad time, let's say, for me as an individual, if I was to just be very, very vulnerable about it. I had a chance of going to a university in Italy, and this was not the easiest of things to go by. So I thought that I would be able to get a scholarship to do my education there. And I remember traveling from Nairobi all the way to Milan. That was in around August. And then in October, they told me that the scholarship is not going to be available anymore. And this was me in a foreign country with literally no house rent. So you don't know where you're going to sleep. You've been living in Airbnbs. Your money is almost drying off. You were hoping for the scholarship. Now you don't even know whether you can afford that particular fee at that particular front. And I remember that October was a rough time for me coming into November. And I remember at the end of November, I just had to write a withdrawal letter to the school, not knowing what's going to be the next sort of possible front for me. And at that time, I was just thinking, what else can I do with my life? Because I don't know whether it's going to work out for me in traditional education in that particular front and what to continue. And at that time, as I was thinking, I said, you can't just kill things like that. You have to die trying, right? When things don't go your way, you have to build opportunities for yourself. So I asked myself, what is my sphere of influence? And at that time, I knew at least I could program, right? I had toyed around with the whole EdTech thing, from African Blockchain Initiative to doing different sort of content creation across different platforms. And I thought probably the core sphere of influence would be, let's see if we can start a coding school in Kenya. But then there's a lot of coding schools in Kenya as well, right? When you think about that. So you have to have a clear moat. And the moat here was, I personally struggled paying for my fees, and I was at the brink of withdrawing from school because of that particular experience. What if we created a coding school, but at least solved the whole problem of people who are also in a similar position to mine, people who could not pay that sort of fees? So in December 2019, Zindua School was founded as Chapter Bootcamps as the first coding school in Kenya that allowed students to come, learn, get the skills, and then pay once they're earning. That's something I wish I had, right? But because I didn't have it, the least you could do is use your sphere of influence to extend it to other people who might need a service like this. So the Zindua founding story was not easy by itself. For anyone else who's out there who wants to get into entrepreneurship, I think we underlook how important it is to get a good co-founder, as early as possible. I was lucky to get this very, very soon in the founding journey, and someone who is also equally motivated on what we wanted to do in regards to making quality education accessible and having a similar sphere of influence in the coding space. So starting was not easy. Yes, when we started, we had like 200 applications off the go, right? But the operations are not an easy thing to crack by yourself. So that's always the first challenge. The second challenge, and this is probably one of the biggest challenges that we have experienced and has really anchored our story here, was when we embarked to start a school that allows people to pay once they're earning. Yes, people were interested in it, but then our first ever class had the highest dropout rates. So imagine 200 applications, you go ahead and create some random aptitude test, you filter out these people and you get 35 people. And out of those 35 people, all of them drop by like the second month. And this is because you're just a team of 2, right? You're trying to toy around all these sort of things and you're left with just about 7 people. And now your business model is off the pits. You're losing motivation. You don't know if this is something you want to do long term as well. And that sort of looking at what seemed like a really good idea go down the pits for me, I would say is one of the biggest challenges we've seen here at Zindua. But probably the most important thing is whenever you have a challenge, how can you start being innovative and figuring out ways to overcome whatever challenges on the bootcamp. So interesting story actually is we were thinking of closing chapter bootcamps in that particular year. It just didn't make sense. The dropout rate was high. We just didn't know how we are going to get payments if all your 35 students are gone and you're not getting anything upfront. And I remember at the end of the year, one thing that overcame the challenge is the 7 students, 3 of them just had a random meeting and they called me afterwards and they said, you know what, we really enjoyed the program, even though it's been tricky and it's not been, the full sort of experience we thought of, but we've gained a lot. We've started getting jobs. We'd love to volunteer as the next set of technical mentors. This was at a time where I was literally at the brink of giving up in that particular front, and then 3 people just give you a lifeline that makes you think, you know what, this could actually work out all through. So yes, that was a challenge, but at least when you do good things, you can get lucky. Just get into positions of getting lucky and something will come off of it. And I know this is very similar to what you had from Chris's as his founding story. Understanding all the challenges we've experienced at Zindua, what I really loved about the team was being extremely innovative as to how we approach it. So when you had a significant dropout rate, we said probably we need to get students to have a bit more skin on the game. And as students started paying what they could afford upfront, we started getting students who are slightly more serious about their journey, and their dropout rate started reducing off of that. So when you start seeing a program that has less dropout rate, and you start seeing success stories of a student who comes to Zindua when they're green. Imagine someone coming into Zindua, then chapter bootcamps from a philosophy degree, and then graduating, and then joining Kamilimu, and then after that getting a job at Andela, and then all of a sudden they're getting all these sort of good opportunities. The one point where we knew this was going to work was when, 1, it started making sense from a sustainability perspective. So you had students who were sticking around, and 2, you could see the outcomes. Most of the graduates who got to the end had really interesting outcomes, and those were really interesting stories. And just even having coffee with them just inspires you to be like, you know what, it's time to double down on this because it speaks value. Even if it's to 1 person, you just want to scale that to 10, then to 100, then you have a proper business there. There's 2 success stories I'd love to highlight. I think one of the most interesting success stories here is how Chris was part of the first class at chapter bootcamps, how he was part of the 3 people who volunteered to come in back as technical mentors, how he was probably the graduate with this really attractive job the moment he cleared it out, and how he was able to grow into that role, into becoming part of the co-founding team. That for me is inspirational, and that's pretty much the mantra we want to keep building Zindua at. Another really interesting story here is Rohi. Right? Rohi came in chapter bootcamp's first class, probably one of the most silent people I had met out there. Also part of the 3 who offered to volunteer later on. And then he got a job, was it in Germany or in Europe remotely, and is now working for Albert Insights, not even in data science, but in software development. Like, that's how much that journey nurtured him. And these are people who joined Zindua at a time where we had no structure whatsoever. So for all students who are joining Zindua when there's better structures, if they were able to hack through this at that particular point, it's a challenge to you to know that we're giving you all the sort of resources to make your success story even better than this. Zindua, your career in tech is probably the best choice you can make, but be ready to be committed 100%. Be ready to experience challenges, be ready to collaborate. It's all about Zindua putting its effort on you and you pulling up your socks to that effort and making sure you practice and the outcomes will come. Enjoy what you do and you'll always enjoy the outcome of it.